Climate-friendly farming. Scientists find feeding grazing cattle seaweed cuts methane emissions by almost 40%. This is amazing. This is by University of California, Davis. Seaweed is once again showing promise for making cattle farming more sustainable. A study by researchers at University of California, Davis found that feeding grazing beef cattle a seaweed supplement in pellet form reduced their methane emissions by almost 40% without affecting their health or weight. The study was published December 2nd in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. This is the first study to test seaweed on grazing beef cattle in the world. It follows previous studies that showed seaweed cut methane emissions 82% in feedlot cattle and over 50% in dairy cows. How much methane do cattle produce? Livestock accounts for 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, with the latest portion coming from methane that cattle release when they burp. Grazing cattle also produce more methane than feedlot cattle or dairy cows because they eat more fiber from grass. In the US, there are 9 million dairy cows and over 64 million beef cattle. Beef cattle spend only about 3 months in feedlots and spend most of their lives grazing on pasture and producing methane, said senior author Ermias Kebreb, professor, Department of Animal Science. He said, we need to make this seaweed additive or any feed additive more accessible to grazing cattle to make cattle farming more sustainable while meeting the global demand for meat. Difficulty in lowering grazing cattle emissions. Kebreb said that the daily feeding of pasture-based cattle is more difficult than feedlot or dairy cows because they often graze far from ranches for long periods. However, during the winter or when the grass is scarce, ranchers often supplement their diet. For this study, researchers divided 24 beef steers, a mix of Angus and Wagyu breeds, into two groups. One received the seaweed supplement and the other did not. Researchers conducted the 10-week experiment at a ranch in Dillon, Montana. Since these were grazing cattle, they ate the supplement voluntarily, which still resulted in nearly 40% cut in methane emissions. Most research to reduce methane emissions using feed additives has taken place in controlled environments with daily supplements, but Kebreb noted that in the study that fewer than half of those methods are effective for grazing cattle. This method paves the way to make a seaweed supplement easily available to grazing animals, he said. Ranchers could even introduce the seaweed through a lick block for their cattle. Kebreb said pastoral farming, which includes large grazing systems, supports millions of people around the world, often in areas vulnerable to climate change. This study suggests a way to make cattle grazing better for the environment and play a role in fighting climate change. And this is from University of California, Davis, on phys.org. This is great news. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.